Have you ever noticed how a single thought can ruin your entire day, or how a single thought can change your life forever? Today, I want to talk about something so simple, yet so powerful: the thoughts you choose to feed every single day. Because here's the truth: your thoughts are not just whispers in your mind, they are the architects of your destiny. Control your thoughts, and you can literally change your life. Yes, it's that powerful. Let's explore how. Have you ever stopped to notice how a single thought can quietly change the direction of your day? I mean, really notice it. You wake up in the morning, and almost immediately, a thought crosses your mind. It could be something as simple as, I'm going to have a busy day today, or I don't know if I can handle this. And just like that, the seed is planted. That one thought, so tiny, so seemingly insignificant, begins to grow. It starts shaping how you feel, how you act, how you respond to the world around you. That thought is not just floating in your head, it is silently influencing your reality. Think about it. When you wake up feeling positive, even the smallest tasks seem easier. You smile at a stranger, you greet your colleagues with warmth, and somehow challenges seem manageable. But on a day when your thoughts are clouded with doubt, anxiety, or negativity, everything feels heavier. Traffic feels unbearable, mistakes feel catastrophic, even compliments feel untrue. It is your thought patterns that are coloring your reality, often before you even step out of your house. Your life, in many ways, begins in your mind. Let me give you a story. There was a man I once met who described his life as always unlucky. He would talk about missed opportunities, failed attempts, relationships that didn't work out. And as I listened, I realized something fascinating. It wasn't just bad luck. He expected failure. His thoughts had built a narrative so strong that every event in his life, whether positive or neutral, seemed to confirm that story. And when that becomes your mindset, my friends, your reality simply follows. Thoughts are not passive, they are active. They are the invisible architects of your life. Now you might be thinking, but I can't always control my thoughts. They just come. And you are right. Thoughts will always come uninvited, like clouds passing through the sky. But here's the truth. While you cannot stop clouds from appearing, you can choose which ones to let linger, which ones to watch, and which ones to gently let pass by. You can choose where your attention goes and where your energy flows. This is the first step in understanding that your thoughts are shaping your reality. Consider this: if you constantly tell yourself, I am not good enough, your reality will mirror that thought. Opportunities will seem scarce, confidence will falter, and fear will become your companion. But if you tell yourself, even quietly, I am learning, I am growing, and I can handle this, you begin to notice opportunities. You take actions that align with growth and success. Your external world, seemingly so independent, is actually responding to the internal world you are cultivating. Thoughts are seeds. Plant fear, and fear grows. Plant hope, and hope flourishes. Plant gratitude, and life opens doors you never knew existed. It is incredible how subtle this is. A single thought, repeated often enough, becomes a belief. And beliefs, my friends, are stubborn. They are the foundation of your habits, your decisions, and ultimately the life you live. The problem is, most of us don't realize this. We underestimate the power of a thought. We shrug it off, thinking it is too small to matter. But that small thought, nurtured every day, has the power to shape our destiny. It is the difference between a life of frustration and a life of fulfillment. And here is something more profound. It is not just your own thoughts that matter. the thoughts you entertain about others, the stories you tell yourself about your environment, your work, your relationships, all of these shape the reality you experience. If you constantly assume the worst in people, your interactions will reflect that assumption. If you constantly focus on scarcity, you will notice scarcity everywhere. Your reality is, in a very real sense, a reflection of your thinking. But this is not a reason for despair. On the contrary, it is liberating, because if your thoughts have the power to shape your reality, then you also have the power to change it. You don't have to be a victim of circumstances. You don't have to blame the world for how your life turns out. By consciously choosing your thoughts, by nurturing ones that are positive, constructive, and growth-oriented, you can begin to steer your life in a direction you desire. Thoughts are the silent sculptors of your destiny, and you hold the chisel. So let this sink in for a moment. Every day, as soon as you wake up, you are planting seeds. The question is, what kind of seeds are you planting? Are they seeds of fear, doubt, and limitation? Or are they seeds of hope, possibility, and abundance? Your life is not just happening to you. It is happening through you, through the thoughts you allow to dominate your mind. And the beautiful thing is, it is never too late to start planting different seeds. Remember, friends, your thoughts shape your reality. They are the invisible architects of your destiny. Choose them wisely. Feed the ones that empower you. Weed out the ones that weaken you. And watch, with patience and faith, how your inner world begins to transform your outer world. It is not magic, it is mindfulness. It is not luck, it is awareness. It is not coincidence. It is the power of a mind that understands its own creative force. Have you ever wondered why, even when we know what we should do, we still find ourselves trapped in the same patterns? We know that negative thoughts harm us. We know that worry steals our peace, and yet we repeat the same behaviors over and over again. Why? The answer is simple: we are not fully aware. Awareness is the bridge between what we are and what we can become. Without awareness, we drift like a boat without a rudder, tossed by every wave, every circumstance, every passing emotion. But the moment you become aware, everything changes. Awareness is the first step. It is the light that exposes the corners of your mind you never noticed before. Often, we live on autopilot. We react, we respond, we make choices all without realizing why. We blame situations, we blame people, we blame life itself, but the truth is that most of the time, we are unaware of the thought patterns and inner conversations that are silently shaping our experiences. Awareness is like looking into a mirror, not just a casual glance, but a deep, honest gaze. It allows you to see yourself exactly as you are: your habits, your fears, your recurring thoughts, your unconscious reactions. And only then can you begin to change. Let me tell you a story. There was a young man who came to me, frustrated with his life. He said, "I work hard, I try to be good, but everything seems to go wrong. I don't understand why I can't succeed." And as we talked, it became clear that he was unaware of his own inner dialogue. Every day, he was telling himself that he wasn't capable, that he wasn't smart enough, that opportunities were always meant for others. These thoughts were so automatic, so familiar, that he didn't even notice them. They had become invisible scripts running in the background, guiding his actions, shaping his decisions, and subtly reinforcing his failures. When he became aware of these thoughts, when he started noticing them instead of ignoring them, everything began to shift. Awareness didn't instantly solve his problems, but it gave him the power to respond differently, to make conscious choices, to slowly change his inner narrative. Awareness is not just noticing your thoughts, it is noticing the quality of your thoughts, the emotions they generate, and the behaviors they trigger. It is understanding the rhythm of your mind, the patterns, the tendencies, the recurring loops that often go unnoticed. When you become aware of these patterns, you create a space between the stimulus and your response. You no longer react impulsively. You begin to see that your feelings, your judgments, your anxieties are not the ultimate truth. They are simply reflections of your own thinking. And that realization is liberating. Many of us believe that awareness is something we achieve through effort or discipline alone. But in reality, it begins with curiosity. Curiosity about your own mind. Curiosity about why you feel a certain way. Curiosity about why certain thoughts keep returning, no matter how hard you try to ignore them. When you cultivate curiosity, you stop judging yourself. You stop labeling thoughts as good or bad. You start observing them as if you are watching clouds pass in the sky. Some clouds are dark, some are light, some are fleeting, some linger, but none of them define the sky itself. Awareness allows you to see your thoughts as passing phenomena rather than as permanent truths. Awareness also teaches humility. It teaches you that no matter how much knowledge or wisdom you acquire, you are still a work in progress. There are corners of your mind that are unexplored, biases that are hidden, emotions that are unexamined. Awareness invites you to gently explore these corners without judgment, to shine light on the unconscious forces that drive your decisions, and to make small, conscious adjustments that ripple into profound change. It is not about perfection, it is about presence. And here is something even more profound. Awareness is the foundation for freedom. Freedom from old habits, freedom from reactive patterns, freedom from thoughts that limit you. Until you are aware, you are like a passenger on a train, carried along by forces you cannot see. But the moment awareness awakens within you, you can choose your destination, you can choose which tracks to follow, and you can steer your life with intention. Awareness does not mean you control everything instantly, but it gives you the key to begin shaping your life consciously. Every great change in life begins with this simple step: noticing. Noticing the thoughts that pull you down, noticing the fears that hold you back, noticing the small, seemingly insignificant decisions that, over time, determine the trajectory of your life. Awareness is the first act of courage in the journey toward mastery of your mind. It is the recognition that your inner world matters, that the way you think and feel is inseparable from the life you experience. And once you begin to notice, once you become truly aware, the rest of the journey becomes possible. So, my friends, I invite you today to start this practice. Begin by observing your thoughts, not to criticize them, not to suppress them, but to simply see them. Notice what your mind dwells on when you wake up, when you face challenges, when you are alone. Watch the recurring patterns, the stories you tell yourself, the judgments you pass. And with awareness comes choice. With awareness comes power. With awareness comes the possibility of a life no longer dictated by automatic reactions, but guided by conscious intention. Awareness is not just the first step, it is the doorway to every other step that follows in changing your life. Have you ever noticed that there is a voice inside your head that never seems to rest? A voice that comments on everything you do, everything you think, and every decision you make. Sometimes it whispers softly, sometimes it shouts loudly, but it is always there. That voice is what we often call the inner critic. It is the one that says, "You're not good enough," or "You don't have what it takes," or "Why even try? You'll fail anyway." And if we are not careful, we begin to believe it. We begin to live as though those words were absolute truths, as though they were carved in stone. But here's the secret: your inner critic is not your enemy, it is simply a part of you that has never been questioned. And the moment you challenge it, the moment you examine it, everything can begin to change. Most of us go through life listening to that voice without ever questioning it. We treat it as if it were a wise guide, when in fact it is often a reflection of fear, past experiences, and self-doubt. It repeats old stories, stories that were never meant to define who we are today. Perhaps someone told you when you were young that you weren't smart enough or that you weren't capable. Maybe you failed at something once, and that failure has become a permanent label in your mind. And over the years, these repeated thoughts crystallize into the inner critic, the one who tries to protect you from disappointment by keeping you small. But here's the paradox. By listening to that voice without question, we often limit ourselves far more than life ever could. We avoid opportunities, and we shrink from challenges, and we settle for a life far smaller than what we are truly capable of. Our inner critic, disguised as a protector, becomes a jailer. And freedom, my friends, comes when we dare to confront it. Challenging your inner critic is not arrogance. It is courage. It is the willingness to say, I hear you, but I am not controlled by you. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman who wanted to start her own business. Every time she thought about taking the leap, her inner critic would speak, You don't have enough experience. You'll probably fail. Why would anyone trust you? For years she listened. She delayed. She hesitated. And she stayed in a job that drained her energy. Then one day she decided to question the voice. She asked herself, Where is the evidence that I cannot succeed? Who says I am not capable? And slowly the voice began to lose its power. She realized that most of its messages were assumptions, fears, and old stories, not truths. That moment of awareness, of challenging the inner critic, was the beginning of a new chapter. She started her business, faced obstacles, and yes, made mistakes. But she also discovered something far more valuable. She was stronger, wiser, and more capable than the critic had ever allowed her to believe. Challenging your inner critic is a practice, not a one-time act. It begins with listening. Listen to the voice without judgment, without resistance. Notice what it says and notice how it makes you feel. Then gently question it. Ask, is this really true? Is this fact or fear? What would I say to a friend who thought this about themselves? When you do this, you begin to create distance between your true self and the critic. You realize that the critic's job is to protect, but its method is flawed. It does not see your potential, it only sees risk. And life is not about avoiding risk, it is about embracing it wisely. Another important aspect of challenging your inner critic is replacing its messages with constructive alternatives. When the critic says, you can't, answer with, I can try, I can learn, I can improve. When it says, you're not enough, respond with, I am enough and I am growing every day. These are not empty affirmations. They are statements of truth anchored in your ability to act, to learn, to evolve. The inner critic loses its power not by silencing it, but by confronting it with evidence, courage, and self-compassion. And here is something even more profound. Your inner critic often speaks from past pain. It carries the voices of people, experiences, and failures from your past. But your life is not your past. Your life is now, in this moment, with all the possibilities that exist before you. Challenging the critic is a way of reclaiming your present, of refusing to let yesterday's fears dictate today's choices. It is an act of liberation. Finally, remember this: everyone has an inner critic. Some are louder than others, some are quieter. The difference is not in having one or not, it is in how you respond to it. When you challenge your critic, when you face it with courage, awareness, and wisdom, you take control of your mind, you take control of your life, you open the door to growth, creativity, and fulfillment that was always there, waiting for you to step through. So I invite you today to listen, to notice, and to challenge. Do not accept every thought that arises as truth. Question it, reflect on it, replace it when necessary. The voice inside you does not define you, your actions, your courage, your awareness do. Challenge your inner critic, and you begin to step into the life you were always capable of living. It is not easy, it is not instant, but it is transformative. And every step you take against that inner voice is a step toward freedom, toward confidence, and toward the life your heart truly desires. Have you ever tried to ignore a thought only to find that it refuses to leave? Perhaps it is a worry about the future, a regret from the past, or a negative belief about yourself. You push it aside, you tell yourself, I won't think about this, but somehow it returns, often stronger than before. This is because the mind does not respond to suppression, it responds to replacement. Trying to suppress a thought is like trying to hold water in your fist. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips through your fingers. True transformation happens not when we ignore or fight our thoughts, but when we consciously replace them with ones that serve us, uplift us, and guide us toward growth. Think about it. When a negative thought arises, I can't do this, the instinctive reaction is often to push it away, to say, stop thinking that. But in reality, that act of resistance gives the thought energy. The mind is clever. It notices the effort to suppress, and it doubles its insistence. Suppression is like trying to bury a seed without removing it from the soil. It may seem hidden for a while, but it will sprout, eventually stronger than before. The key is not to fight the thought, but to acknowledge it, understand it, and then gently replace it with a thought that empowers rather than diminishes you. Let me give you an example. There was a young man who constantly struggled with self-doubt. Whenever he faced a challenge, his mind would say, "You're not ready, you'll fail." For years, he tried to suppress these thoughts. He told himself, "I won't think that." And yet, every time a new opportunity appeared, those doubts resurfaced, louder than ever. Then one day, he tried something different. Instead of pushing the thought away, he consciously replaced it with a question: what can I learn from this? How can I rise to the occasion? And slowly over time, he noticed a shift. The doubt did not disappear immediately, but it no longer controlled him. By replacing negative thoughts with constructive ones, he regained agency over his mind and, ultimately, over his life. Replacement is not about pretending. It is not about lying to yourself or creating false illusions. It is about guiding your mind toward thoughts that are aligned with growth, gratitude, and possibility. When anger arises, you can replace it with understanding. When fear arises, you can replace it with curiosity. When self-doubt arises, you can replace it with self-compassion. The act of replacement acknowledges the thought, respects its existence, and then gently redirects the energy towards something more constructive. This is the true art of mental mastery. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine your mind as a garden. Negative thoughts are like weeds. You can stomp on them, you can try to ignore them, but as long as they remain in the soil, they will keep growing. Replacement is like planting flowers in their place. You pull the weed, but you also plant a seed that nourishes the garden. Over time, the flowers grow, the weeds lose their power, and the garden flourishes. Your mind works in the same way. Plant empowering thoughts, and they will gradually crowd out the ones that no longer serve you. Many people hesitate to replace thoughts because they feel they must be perfect or because they expect instant results. But the mind works slowly. Small, consistent steps are what create lasting transformation. Each time you catch a negative thought and consciously replace it with a positive, constructive alternative, you are rewiring your brain. Neural pathways that once reinforced fear, doubt, and limitation begin to fade, while new pathways of confidence, courage, and possibility begin to form. It is not magic, it is practice, consistency, and patience. Replacement also requires awareness, because you cannot replace what you do not notice. This is why awareness is the step before this one. You must first recognize the thoughts that are undermining you, acknowledge their presence, and then consciously choose what to place in their stead. And here's the beauty of it. Once you make this practice a habit, the mind becomes your ally rather than your adversary. Thoughts that once controlled you now become tools you can shape, mold, and direct toward the life you desire. Let me tell you one more story. A woman I know struggled with resentment toward a colleague. Every day, she replayed the same scenes in her mind, fueling anger, frustration, and bitterness. For years, she tried to suppress the resentment, telling herself, "I shouldn't feel this way." But it never went away. Then she tried replacing it. Instead of fighting the resentment, she replaced her thoughts with curiosity. What can I learn from this person? How can I respond differently? Slowly, the anger softened. The bitterness faded. And over time, she felt lighter, freer, and more in control of her own happiness. By replacing thoughts, not suppressing them, she transformed her inner world and with it, her outer world. So, my friends, remember this: your mind will always produce thoughts, some positive, some negative. You cannot stop them, and you should not try to suppress them. But you can replace them. Replace fear with curiosity. Replace anger with understanding. Replace self-doubt with self-compassion. Replace limitation with possibility. And as you do this consistently, your mind becomes a fertile field for growth, joy, and fulfillment. Replacement is not just a technique, it is a way of life. It is a reminder that you have the power to guide your mind and through it, to guide your destiny. Have you ever noticed how your mind is constantly painting pictures for you? Sometimes they are dark and frightening. Sometimes they are hopeful and beautiful. But the truth is, your mind is always imagining something. The question is, what are you allowing it to imagine most often? The power of visualization is extraordinary because your brain doesn't always distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is real. When you consciously visualize your desired life, your mind begins to prepare your heart, your body, and your actions to align with that vision. Visualization is not mere daydreaming, it is a practice of creation. It is the first step in turning the invisible into the visible, the imagined into reality. Many of us underestimate this power. We focus on what we see, what is tangible, and yet we forget that before any achievement, any success, any transformation in life, there is first an image in the mind. Every great artist, every great leader, every innovator began with a picture in their imagination. It might have been a sketch, a mental rehearsal, or simply a feeling of possibility, but it existed first in thought. The mind works like a magnet. It attracts experiences, opportunities, and even people that align with the clarity of the images you hold within. Let me give you an example. There was a young student who dreamed of becoming a writer. Every night, he would close his eyes and see himself sitting at his desk, pen in hand, publishing stories that touched people's hearts. He imagined the joy of readers, the letters he would receive, the satisfaction of seeing his name in print. Every morning, he woke up with that image still alive in his mind. And because his mind had rehearsed it, he acted differently. He stayed disciplined. He practiced writing daily. He sought opportunities to share his work. Years later, he achieved what he had visualized, not by luck, not by chance, but because the consistent mental image had shaped his decisions, his focus, and his persistence. Visualization had turned possibility into reality. Visualization is powerful because it engages not just the mind, but the emotions as well. When you vividly imagine a life you desire, your body reacts as if it were happening now. You feel excitement, joy, and even gratitude in the present moment. And these emotions have a profound effect. They fuel motivation, resilience, and clarity. The more real the image feels, the more your mind begins to align with it. This is why athletes visualize winning games, musicians visualize flawless performances, and leaders visualize their success before it manifests. You are preparing yourself from the inside out. Now, some of you might think, but I don't know exactly what I want. How can I visualize it? And that is okay. Visualization is not about perfection, it is about direction. You don't need to know every detail of your life to imagine a version of it that feels right, that feels aligned with who you are and who you wish to become. You might visualize being more confident, more kind, more focused, or more peaceful. You might imagine achieving a particular goal or living a life of purpose. The key is to create a mental image that excites you, that inspires action, and that brings clarity to your heart and mind. Visualization also helps you overcome fear. Often we hesitate, we doubt, and we feel paralyzed because our minds are filled with images of failure. What if I fail? What if I am not enough? What if this does not work? These images are vivid too, and they can be very convincing. But here is the beauty of conscious visualization. When you intentionally fill your mind with images of success, courage, and growth, you are effectively replacing fear with possibility. You are training your brain to see solutions instead of obstacles, to see opportunities instead of limitations. Your subconscious begins to believe in your potential, and that belief becomes the fuel for action. Let me share another story. There was a young entrepreneur who wanted to start a business but was terrified of failing. Every day, she would sit quietly and imagine herself running the business successfully. She imagined meeting clients, solving problems, growing her team, and making a positive impact in her community. She felt the satisfaction, the joy, the pride as if it were happening in that moment. After weeks of this practice, she noticed something remarkable. Fear had not disappeared, but it had become manageable. Her confidence grew. She started taking small steps, and eventually, her business became a reality. Visualization had not only clarified her path, but had strengthened her courage to walk it. Visualization is also a tool for gratitude. When you imagine the life you desire as if it already exists, you begin to feel gratitude for it now. Gratitude amplifies your ability to attract positive experiences and aligns your mind with abundance rather than scarcity. It is a practice that reminds you that you are not waiting for life to happen. You are participating in its creation, shaping it from the inside out. So, my friends, I invite you today to practice this simple but profound exercise. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths. Picture your desired life not vaguely, but with as much clarity as you can. Imagine the sights, the sounds, the feelings, and the experiences. Feel the joy, the pride, and the fulfillment as if it is happening in this very moment. Hold that image in your mind daily. Let it inspire your choices, your actions, and your mindset. Watch how, slowly but surely, your inner vision begins to shape your outer reality. Remember, your thoughts are seeds, but your visualizations are the blueprint. What you hold in your mind's eye has the power to shape your destiny. Visualize with clarity, feel with intensity, act with courage, and step by step, watch your life transform. The life you imagine is the life you are preparing to live. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to focus on what is missing in our lives? We wake up, look around, and our minds immediately start counting what we don't have, what we fear, what is wrong. It is as if the human mind is naturally drawn to scarcity, to dissatisfaction, to longing. And when we live like this, it is no wonder that our days feel heavy, our hearts restless, and our lives smaller than they could be. But there is a simple practice, so simple that many overlook it, that can transform the way you experience every moment. Gratitude. Practicing gratitude daily is not just a feel-good habit. It is a fundamental shift in perspective, a way to rewire the mind, and a doorway to a life filled with joy, peace, and purpose. Gratitude begins with noticing. It begins with stopping, even for a moment, to see the blessings that are already present in your life. Often we are so focused on our goals, our ambitions, our struggles that we forget the little things, the warmth of the sun on our face, the smile of a loved one, the comfort of a home, the simple ability to breathe. When we take time to notice these things, we plant seeds of contentment and joy in our hearts. Gratitude is not about denying challenges or pretending life is perfect. It is about acknowledging the fullness of life, even amid difficulties, and choosing to focus on what nourishes the soul. Let me share a story. There was a man who had just lost his job. He was frustrated, anxious, and angry at the world. Every day he complained, he ruminated, and he felt the weight of despair pressing down on him. Then one evening, a friend suggested something simple. Before you sleep, list 3 things you are grateful for today. The first night, he struggled. He couldn't think of anything beyond his frustration. But he persisted. He wrote down the warmth of his morning tea, the laughter of his child, the kindness of a neighbor. Something shifted. Slowly, he began to notice more blessings, more small miracles in his daily life. His anxiety didn't vanish immediately, but his perspective changed. Gratitude became a lens through which he began to see possibility rather than limitation, hope rather than despair, and eventually, opportunities that he had never considered began to appear. Practicing gratitude had reshaped not only his mind, but also his life. Gratitude is transformative because it changes the chemicals in your brain. Studies show that gratitude increases serotonin, dopamine, and other neurotransmitters that promote happiness and well-being. But more importantly, it changes the narrative you tell yourself every day. When you focus on what is good in your life, your mind begins to expect more good. It trains you to notice abundance rather than scarcity, to see solutions rather than problems, to cultivate resilience rather than despair. It is a practice that turns attention into energy and energy into action. One of the most beautiful aspects of gratitude is that it is available to everyone at any moment. It does not depend on wealth, status, or external circumstances. Even in hardship, you can find something to be grateful for, a lesson learned, a connection, a breath of life. Gratitude reminds us that life is not about perfection, but about presence. It teaches us that happiness is not something to chase in the future, It is something to cultivate in the now. Gratitude also strengthens relationships. When you express genuine gratitude toward others, you deepen your connections, build trust, and create a cycle of positivity that benefits both giver and receiver. A simple thank you can change the energy of an interaction, lift the spirit of another person, and reinforce your own awareness of the good around you. Relationships flourish when gratitude flows because it shifts focus from expectation to appreciation, from judgment to acknowledgement, from criticism to kindness. Let me give you another example. A young woman I knew felt stuck in her career. She complained constantly about her boss, her workload, and the challenges she faced. One day, she decided to start a gratitude journal. Every morning, she wrote down 3 things she appreciated: her supportive colleagues, the skills she was developing, and the lessons she was learning. Over weeks, she noticed a shift. The work itself hadn't changed, but her experience of it had. She approached tasks with more patience, more creativity, more energy. Her relationships improved, her performance improved, and new opportunities began to appear. Gratitude had not changed the external situation. It had changed her internal world, which in turn influenced her outer world. Gratitude is also a tool for perspective. When life feels overwhelming, when challenges seem insurmountable, gratitude is a gentle reminder that no matter how difficult things may seem, there is always something to hold on to, always something to learn, and always a reason to keep moving forward. It is a mindset that transforms obstacles into opportunities, pain into growth, and scarcity into abundance. So, my friends, I invite you to practice gratitude daily. Begin small. Each morning or evening, take a moment to reflect on 3 things you are grateful for. Write them down, speak them aloud, or simply hold them in your heart. Let gratitude become a habit, a lens, a way of being. Over time, you will notice a profound shift, not in what happens to you, but in how you experience what happens. Life will feel fuller, lighter, more meaningful. Your thoughts will become more positive, your actions more generous, and your spirit more resilient. Remember, the practice of gratitude is not a luxury. It is a necessity for a life of fulfillment. It is the gentle force that can transform fear into faith, scarcity into abundance, and ordinary moments into extraordinary ones. Practice gratitude daily and watch how your heart opens, your mind expands, and your life transforms in ways you never thought possible.